Hello and welcome to For Your Reconsideration, the film podcast that, like a film industry strike, stands up against AI and all that cheapo hokum and stands up for the weird, wonderful and ridiculous of all corners of the cinema world and seeks reappraisal for each and every one. Or do we? Joining me on the fictional picket line are Simon and James. How are you, boys?
Hello.
Topical. Well, I hope it's still topical by the time it comes.
I think it's going to be topical for a few months.
Oh God!
Well, we do like to bait a little bit of current opinion while we're at it.
Yeah.
Or no, actually, this is just a new thing I'm doing. You guys, I'm dragging you in on this ride with me. I apologise.
I'm happy to be dragged, to be honest. Yeah, it's good.
Excellent.
Something a bit spicy at the top, yeah.
Spicy? Guys, well, first off, how are you both?
Yeah, good.
Very well, Rob. Yourself?
Splendid. Thank you very much. Splendid. I've been. I'm not so sure about Barbenheimer, as in the phrase. I would prefer Boppenheimer. That's what I will be referring to.
Pretty good.
Minimal Barbie, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, sidelines Barbie. Yeah.
What about Boppenheimery?
Barb Oppenheimer.
That's the one. Bob Oppenheimer. Job done. Absolute job done. Can I ask what you've both been watching?
Yes, so you may remember, Rob, last time out we discussed a little film called Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and part that was inspired by the fact that a new Indiana Jones picture was coming out. So I went to see The Dial of Destiny, and it'd be remiss of us not to discuss that briefly, having done a whole episode on the previous instalment. So I would have called this AKA Indiana Jones and the Adequate Adventure. It's just the most meh, instantly forgettable instalment in the franchise. The film really lacks that sense of Spielbergian magic, and it's just sort of rumbles along until it finishes. It's a 3-star film. It just is. It leaves very little impression. Ford acts well, but moves slowly. I mean, that's not a criticism. He's 80 years old. Waller-Bridge is just so irritating. And there are one or two nice set pieces, but it lacks any real sense of personality and just feels a bit tired. But, all the people who hated Crystal Skull will be glad to hear that there aren't 10 seconds of bequiff CGI monkeys in this one. So, I didn't dislike it. It just left no impression on me other than it was a bit of a bummer and cast kind of a pall over the upcoming summer blockbuster season. And then I saw Across the Spider-Verse, Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Oppenheimer in quick succession, and now I'm absolutely fucking buzzing. So we're back. Movies are back.
Does Dial of Destiny not... So I have not seen it. Does it occupy a happy little place in all of that? Or is it just no?
What do you mean in terms of...
In the ones that you've seen. So you mentioned Spider-Verse, Oppenheimer, and Dead Reckoning.
Oh, no, compared to them, it's one of the worst films ever made, because they're all really, really good, and this is just it's just not a fun film, which is the antithesis of what
that worries me a lot.
That was my main issue with it. I found it really dull. I was just it looked really dull for a start because most of the action sequences are at night and in the rain, and it was just a bit dreary. But then also it's just really depressing. And I was just I'm getting Indiana Jones is getting really old. That means I'm getting really old, and oh god. You're being way more generous than me, James. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was way too long.
Oh, it's really long. Really long.
Oh, man.
And having watched all the others recently as well, not necessarily in preparation for it, just because we just happened to watch them all, and just had a great time with all of them, even the ones I don't like Temple of Doom and Crystal Skull. They're still entertaining films. But I just found this one really boring. And there was flashes of good stuff in there, but on the whole, I think you summed it up when you said it was missing the Spielberg magic, because that's what it was missing. There wasn't any magic in it, I don't think. It was just a bit meh. It was meh. Yeah. All right, cool. It just didn't do it for me. Sadly.
I mean, fair play to Mangold. He's had a go, and he is a very apt Hollywood filmmaker.
Yeah, he's good. He's got some great films.
But he's not Steven Spielberg, and it's just for me, it just didn't have that charge, and I was just sort of like, because I've sort of foregone a lot of the early summer blockbusters like The Flash, no interest, Fast and Furious, no interest.
Yeah, not seen them.
So I was like, all right, this is kicking off my summer blockbuster season. This, and then I just found it really just sort of meh, just not great at all. Not awful, but just I'd rather it had been like unspeakably awful, so it left some sort of impression. But I'm struggling to really recall anything that kind of happened in it. And I wasn't going to. I'd been to the gym, and then I just ended up going, seeing what was on. And I was like, oh, it's out tonight. Like, it was like a Wednesday. And I went, and it was like maybe a third full on a 8:30 showing on the first night that it's available to the wider public. So I just think there's a lack of enthusiasm for that property now. I think it's probably just had its day.
Seems that way.
And there's only people who like grew up with it, like us, who are still interested in it.
But it's like with something like that, just sort of remaster the old ones. Like, don't just put them on 4K and re-release them in cinemas and watch them. I think that would go down better. You don't need to keep making new ones because it's obviously not gonna. Yeah. It's not going to get to that. I mean, because I think we are in the minority who actually quite like Crystal Skull.
Yeah, It's way better than the Dial of Destiny.
I think it is. For a start, I think it feels like an Indiana Jones movie, Crystal Skull. This one doesn't. It's just a completely different film, in my opinion.
Sad, confused old man goes globetrotting.
It's just really, really,
That's
really
the most
sad.
depressing.
It's not horrendous. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh, but do I want to see it again? I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe I was just watching it at a bad time or something. I don't know. But I was very bored.
That's so sad. And for an Indiana Jones movie, that is almost unspeakable that you would feel those emotions afterwards.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you know, I've not seen it, but I did have a dream the other night where I was at a film convention, not unlike the one that we went to, the Sci-Fi Weekender.
Oh, yeah.
The biblically great
folklore
weekend of all time.
Pontins
and everyone was talking about, have you seen blah, blah, blah? And I answered and even interjected and butted in on conversations with, a James Mangold picture. I don't know why. But I just kept repeating it. Honestly, I woke up just talking.
So this was a dream?
This was a dream. I was telling people, James Mangold picture, James Mangold picture, James Mangold picture. I don't know what was wrong with me. This is not it's not a foreign question for me to ask of myself. James, was there anything else you wanted to chat about?
No, just that Oppenheimer's really good, and I'm so glad that it's making so much money. And I'm booked in to see Barbie with Mrs. S at the weekend as well.
Nice.
So we're going to do the second part of the Barbenheimer double bill, a week apart.
Excellent.
So what I will say as well, when I came out of Oppenheimer on Sunday night at 11 o'clock, I didn't see it in IMAX. I left it too late to book a ticket for that, and they were all sold out. And I came out, and that was a packed screening. As I was coming out of that screening of Oppenheimer, a Barbie screening was letting out at exactly the same time.
Chaos.
The cinema was just rammed, and everybody was talking about the movies that they'd just seen, and it was just a really positive attitude. And I can't remember that the last time that happened. Certainly pre-pandemic, where two massive movies came out on the same weekend that served different audiences, but that everybody sort of had an interest in and everybody's involved in. It feels almost like event cinema of like the 90s or the 2000s.
So great, like for example, when everyone was queuing up to see Independence Day, and it was on multiple screens. That kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing Barbie as well. That'll be good fun, I'm sure.
Who remotely thought that a movie about Barbie that wasn't a kids' movie, that's a 12A, and a movie about the father of the atomic bomb would be the movies to smash that and break that mold? It's just incredible, isn't it?
I just think it's really funny because Warner Brothers clearly put Barbie out on the same weekend as Oppenheimer to try and sink it, in retaliation to Chris Nolan defecting over to Universal and slagging off HBO Max. And basically what social media has done is just combined these two entities together into one incredible double bill. And Oppenheimer's probably made double the money it would have made on its opening weekend because of this phenomenon. And it's a fantastic film, and everyone should go and watch it, and go and catch Barbie as well, because I will be going to watch that also.
Nice.
It's brilliant to see. I mean, a minor annoyance for me, because I tried to get tickets for both Oppenheimer and Barbie, and they were all sold out when I was trying to look. But this is great. It's really good that people are going to the cinema again, and it's this odd, weird, out of nowhere sort of event that's happened, and it is brilliant to see, and it's just makes all these strikes like even weirder. It's like you've got two films where the creators of them have seemingly been given free rein to do what they want.
Yeah.
And they've both pushed them to go out of the cinema, and they've made an absolute buttload of money. But then you've still got these studios being all stubborn about it, going, "Oh no, streaming's the future," or like, "Oh no, we can't give these people the money they want and deserve." And I know it goes a bit deeper than that, but the strikes.
Here's 50p per 2 million streams on Netflix.
Yeah, it's just surely they see this and go like, "Oh yeah, maybe we should sort of realise this and understand there's money to be made going back to the old model of cinemas." Now we're in this. Now it's after the pandemic. I know it's still not fully gone away, but yeah, it's great to see that all these, and it's something like the first time ever top two films have opened to more than 80 million each or something like that.
That's insane.
On its opening weekend.
Just broken so many records, box office wise, yeah.
For the same weekend going head to head as well. And actually, I don't feel like, when I read about it, I don't feel that they see each other as head to head.
No, they don't. They're counter-programming to each other.
Exactly, which is why it works so well, isn't it? It's like two completely different...
They're buddying up.
Yeah, and everyone's just going to the cinema. It's great, and there's such a buzz around both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was Colin Trevorrow's Barbie, I don't think I'd be going to watch it. But I like Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach and Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling.
But I love that all those people are getting the props that they deserve. For doing something like this. I love it.
And Cillian Murphy as well, like finally being leading man on a Nolan movie. They've done 6 films together before or something like that, and it's the first one where he's leading it, and he's a great actor, so it's great to see him like front and center of this massive movie, and it's doing so well. So
I think I underestimate what a huge star he is as well. I'm not really into Peaky Blinders. I've seen the first series and thought it was quite good, but never went back to it. But people love that show,
like devotees, like buy the wardrobes, get tattoos and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, on both sides of the pond. Yeah. So to me, it's like Cillian Murphy from 28 Days Later and Sunshine, but for most people, it's Tommy Shelby from the Peaky Blinders. Yeah. So,
That's a good point, actually. That's probably part of the reason why, because that is a huge programme, isn't it?
Yeah.
Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders.
This is a lesson, and I know it's something that a lot of artistic corners are struggling with. Same in publishing, got to be honest. But, wow, look what happens when you actually back the arts and artists. Look what happens. You get greatness is what can happen if you actually back these people to do great things. So a lesson for all those people in positions of power and decision making all around the arts, because a lot of the time the people that have those decisions to make have no idea what they're talking about. Absolutely no idea.
Can I make an early Oscar prediction? As well
do.
For Oppenheimer, I think it will get over 10 nominations come the...
Do you think so?
Yeah, because I think it'll do really well under the line, and then it's got really great performances in there as well.
Nice.
And adapted screenplay should be in the bag for certain, and then director and picture as well. So I think it's going to do over 10 nominations at the Oscars.
Is it adapted because it's a biopic?
It's based on a book called American Prometheus.
Oh, it is? Wow,
Yeah,
okay,
such
I
a
didn't
good
know that.
title.
I didn't know it was based on a book.
Yeah.
Oh, right, cool.
So,
Nice.
So yeah, it was great. Loved it.
Nice.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm going to see it on Friday, so I'm
Class.
looking forward to it.
While we're speaking, Si, what about you? What have you been swilling on? I always say swilling with you. Sorry, Si. You told me once that you like that phrase. No, you told me once you like that phrase, so I reserve it for you.
I'm always necking a beer when we do this, so maybe it's that.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant, what have you been, emotionally, what am I talking about? Images on screen. We're not. They reminded me a little bit of. Do you remember when we were logo hunting for the podcast, and this guy offered us a logo that looked like the three of us were shirtless in a sauna, too close to each other.
I mean, when I'm looking through my photo library and then stumble across that picture, I will always send it to you because it's the funniest thing. Just why are we in a sauna? Why are we naked in a sauna? I don't understand.
Why are we clearly holding each other's junk?
So funny.
Which will give the listeners an idea of what Simon was doing.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
If we were on a webcam like 5 Live, you would have seen what.
Yes, and ejected from the studio.
Imagine Chappers doing that on 5 Live.
Oh god!
Dear.
Anyway, it's been quite a while since I spoke to you both. Last spoke to you both because I obviously Chris stepped in for the Indiana Jones one. But yeah, for some unknown reason, my wife only wants to exclusively watch Robert De Niro movies at the moment.
Good taste.
Nice, helpful.
I don't know why. I really don't.
So
know
did
why.
Tonight's film was that a couple's event?
Yeah, it was great. It was great how it fell into the
Yeah,
pattern of watching Robert De Niro movies. So yeah, so among some gems I'd already seen, like Taxi Driver, Heat, Copland, Godfather Part 2, which I hadn't seen for ages.
Sickeningly good, that film.
But I managed to tick off a blind spot and watched Casino for the first time.
Whoa.
I'm sorry, many moons ago then I ruined the ending of that. I didn't realise you hadn't seen it.
I mean, I didn't remember that you saying that because I didn't know what was. I remember the opening sequence, where he goes into the car and it explodes.
Yeah.
I remember that, but then as the film went on, I was like, I don't think I've seen this because I don't remember any of this. Yeah, and it's, unsurprisingly, it's really amazing. Just a 3-hour seminar of how to light, shoot and cut a movie and what to look for in a tailored suit. Some gorgeous suits going on in that movie.
Yes.
It's just so good. It's just really, really good. But my absolute horror when I went onto Letterboxd to eagerly put in my rating and what have you. And the first review I saw was complaining how badly edited it was. And I was like, what? What? I was so confused. It's like, how dare anyone besmirch the good name of Thelma?
I think was it you, Sai? I think you had it right when you said it's 6 hours of material edited into 3 that feels like 90 minutes,
exactly.
Or something like.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. It just it's there's so much going on in it, and it's so long, but still it flows really quickly and easily. And all the top lighting in it is just so intense, but just brilliant. It's just fucking great film.
I mean, imagine having that on your resume and no one ever talks about it.
It's just
ridiculous, isn't it?
In your top 10.
It's just absurd, isn't it? Like how solid that filmography is of his.
Yeah, so good. But yeah, in terms of the cinema, I've just been so busy, but I managed to catch up with Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, so good.
Which I was so glad I caught it before it left the cinema, because I genuinely believe that it's the peak of not only comic book movies, but maybe animation in general.
Really?
I just can't comprehend how anything like that can be conceived and imagined, let alone executed as well as it is. It's honestly, it's absolutely brilliant. It might be a bit long. It's like 2.5 hours, I think, so it might be a wee bit long, but it's just so good in every respect. It's a great story as well. It's quite heavy and full on. I don't know if kids could manage to follow it, but
yeah, I didn't go with my son for it. He doesn't really like superheroes.
Does he not? My nephew loves Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's not into them. He's more of a Lego and sports kind of kid. But I went and I was just blown away by it. I mean, if you were going to ding it, you'd say, 2.5 hours is a long time to only tell the first half of a story, but I didn't feel shortchanged at all. It was just incredible.
I was that into it that I did it because I didn't realise it was split into 2.
Yeah. Oh, it's first part of 2.
Yeah. The idea they were going to release it as 1 is mental. It would have been 4 hours long.
Yeah, it like hard stops and goes to be continued. And I was like, no, what? It was like, just gutted that it finished.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a spectacular film. It's so good, so good.
That surely, if they can top that off, because obviously the reviews are brilliant. This could be one of the greatest trilogies ever.
Oh yeah,
but yeah. If it's as good as that second one,
does it count as a trilogy though? If it's like just one really long film cut into two, essentially.
Good question.
Because Mission Impossible is going to have this as well, and again, much like with this Spider-Verse, it's not quite as good as the Spider-Verse, but Tom Cruise jumping off stuff will never not be entertaining to me. And yeah, we loved that. Me and Mrs. S went to see that. Just everything you want from that kind of movie.
Yeah.
But what they both do really well is, even though they are part ones, it's not like, you know, a Deathly Hallows Part 1 or a Mockingjay Part 1 where it's just like, why the fuck are we just not getting on with it? They do work as self-contained films in their own right, but there's clearly more to the story coming later. So I think that aspect of dividing films into one long film into two has got a lot better since the early 2010s. I think when that was all the rage.
Yeah, really good. I've just got to squeeze one more film in, if that's all right.
Go for it.
This was one film I did miss at the cinema, which I was very good about. I watched Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves on Amazon. I rented it on Amazon the other day. It's just really, really good.
Everybody who watches it says it's excellent.
Really good.
Yeah,
I heard it's so good.
It's like, to compare it to something in terms of like tone and execution, I would say it's not too different from the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. When that came out and it was really good, and it was like, holy shit, this is actually really good. It's like that. It's really funny. The action's really good. The CG's really good in it, and it's just like this really amazing ensemble cast led by Chris Pine, who is the best of all the Chris's, I think.
I agree.
I concur.
And then Hugh Grant in there as further extending this renaissance of being the go-to villain for every movie at the minute, it seems.
And Oompa Loompas.
And it's a very, very enjoyable family type movie, I think. It's fun for everyone.
Oh, great, yeah. I'll look forward to that.
But yeah, it's great.
Nice.
I don't know if we'll get any more. I don't think it did too well. Hopefully we do, because it was the guys who directed Game Night.
Oh, I love Game Night.
Yes, and when I watched Game Night, rewatched that a few months ago, I was like, these two are definitely going to get a big franchise movie, so I can't wait for that. And then this was it. So yeah, I hope we do see more of it, because they're obviously really talented filmmakers, and yeah, it's a good one.
Cool. Very, very cool.
What about you, Rob? Sorry, I've been chatting for ages.
No, it's been lovely because obviously, as you guys know, I don't get to go to the cinema very much, and my picks are always hopelessly late, and I'm going to bring in another hopelessly late one. I sat down of an evening to watch The Batman.
Oh, yes.
Matt Reeves' Robert Pattinson. Is it Pattinson or Pattinson?
Pattinson.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Considering he's been on this show, sorry, I don't mean he's been on this show.
Oh, I know,
imagine swoon, constant swoon if he was.
Yeah, do you remember when our Pats came in and just did a tight hour with us?
Yeah, and Rob got his name wrong. So I have always wanted to watch it. It's just finding that time. A 3-hour movie, I find just too much for me.
It's ridiculous.
At the moment, not because of my own head. No, actually, as well because of my own head. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for long movies. If you can't, like we've always said, if you can't do it in 2 hours, let's just,
Yeah, up yours, Nolan.
Exceptions exist,
Exceptions,
though.
Yeah.
And the Batman was one of them. I thought, it's got a flabby bit in the narrative.
Yeah.
But I just think the standard of filmmaking is just so devastatingly high.
Yeah.
I really like the take on the character. I really liked the take on Gotham. I absolutely loved it. It's my it's my film of the year
from last year.
Yeah, from last year. But I really, really flipping loved it, and I'm really heartened to hear that there's going to be a sequel, and also I believe a sort of like a spin-off Penguin
series.
There's a series,
something like that. So I've seen a trailer for that, which is also fairly fascinating.
Big fat Colin Farrell having a big fat good time. Like.
My big fat Colin Farrell good time.
Yeah.
Wedding.
He's so good in that film.
He's ridiculous. But he is just absolutely brilliant, though. He's having a career sweet spot, isn't he, at the minute, this guy? But was he ever out of it, or was it just,
No, he did drop off for a while. I think it was when they tried to make him into a leading man, and they were just like, well, no, this guy's just a really good character actor, I think, and who looks like he should be a leading man.
Yeah. But no, aside from that, I want to pause to take us sideways for another film I'd like to speak about. And I'd like to do this in Bigfoot Corner.
Okay.
Bigfoot Corner.
Harry and the Hendersons.
No. So I came downstairs after the kids were in bed. It was 11 p.m. I wanted my usual. I wanted a cup of soup and I wanted something to enjoy.
Such maniac behaviour, isn't it?
I know. Guys, listeners, what you won't know is that once these guys told me that me having a cup of soup was serial killer behaviour. So I replied with a video of me making a cup of soup saying, like Dollarhide, do you see? Do you see? Now that's the content.
I would have it at 11 p.m. at night.
Oh, it's gorgeous, honestly. It's gorgeous. Just you wait, after this recording, we are swilling. I've got potato and leek for later. What? Anyway.
And then you go to bed. Like...
It's a warm belly filled with leek and potato liquid.
Honestly, what's more comforting than that? I'm telling you. Powdered leek and potato liquid. Anyway.
The fact that it's a cup of soup as well.
Stop. So I'm tuning in. I'm sat in front of my telly with. So I go on Prime. I want a Bigfoot movie, obviously.
So they have that section just there waiting.
I did type in, so it's one of the first things that comes up whenever I type B is Bigfoot. Are you after Bigfoot, Rob?
Always.
Yes, I am. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this. So I ended up watching Big Legend. Now, Big Legend is a movie that has a fairly low budget. And you can see that in, dare I say, and I will caveat this by saying I really enjoyed it, but it does have lower production values that sort of span across the board. But I do think they did a great job with what they had, and it's about a couple that go into the woods, and in the middle of the night they're in the tent, and something drags the tent away with the dude's wife in it. So this is not spoilers. You guys aren't going to watch this, so I'm just going to go for it. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm just looking at the cast list.
Thank you. Don't look at the cast list too far. Stop where you are. So stop where you are. So I hadn't looked up anything when I started watching this, right? So this guy emerges from the woods and he gets put straight into a mental institution, right? Okay, or whatever the expression is. A year later, they release him and they're like, "Are you going to go and do something silly?" Like, nope, go straight in the woods. Go straight in the woods, try and find his wife. Then Bigfoot emerges. They have a big smackdown. It's Ace, person versus person. Person versus Incredible Beast. That may or may not be real, and they scrap it out, and it's great.
We're doing the whole film.
Yeah, is this the review?
You're not going to watch it. You're not going to watch it, but you might after what I say next. Yeah, we do.
Oh, definitely not now. You're going to tell me what the ending is.
No, this is the end. This is the end. Right? Okay. So he wakes up in this hospital room, having been in a coma for a few days, and the nurse is like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I want to, did it die or whatever, well, I don't know whether we can talk about that, because," and then the nurse looks over to the corner of the room and Lance Henriksen rolls out of the shadows in a wheelchair and says, "I'm putting together a team to take out these monsters."
No,
I
he
am
doesn't.
not joking.
No, he doesn't.
I was on my feet with an empty cup of soup in my living room like, he's here! The cinema's principal Sasquatch advocate is here.
Are they making the BBMU? Is that what?
That's what they said. Honestly, it was supposed to be. So his character, the other guy's name was something like Tyler Kane or something, Tyler something, and monster hunting Lance Henriksen was Jackson Wells. And they were like, I'm putting together a team to hunt all these monsters. And then at the end it says, to be continued. No, sorry, what hip-hop song was that?
It sounded like Get Down with the Sickness. Wasn't
it? No, I think I was trying to do at the end of Deep Blue Sea. He deepest, bluest. Anyway. And honestly, I was on my feet. It was just unbelievable. Anyway, I didn't have any Bigfoot news, so I thought I'd share that.
So basically, Lance Henriksen was the Nick Fury in a failed Bigfoot hunting interconnected cinematic universe.
Yes. Yes, I'm not joking, yes.
Has it not been continued yet?
No, this film came out in 2018. Nothing happened.
What?
No sequel.
Oh, what?
No sequel potential.
Not even in production or anything. Oh.
Nothing.
Imagine that if they just had like a VOD straight, like Bigfoot hunting things that don't exist.
You can imagine the volume of gravitas
it's
that
like the
Henriksen
Avengers
bought to this.
Yeah.
I'm putting together
Why
a
is
team.
he in so many Bigfoot pictures? It doesn't make any logical
Absolutely
sense at all.
He absolutely loves it. He loves it, and I think at this point he will die doing it. Actually, I think.
But like how Tom Cruise is going to die on doing some insane stunt, Lance Henriksen's going to die on a set of a straight-to-video Bigfoot picture.
Very much so. Very much so is the answer. Right. So, in lieu of anything else, that big legend is Bigfoot Corner.
Bigfoot Corner.
So worth it.
It is. No, that honestly, I thought you guys would like that tonight. From cinema greatness, we're going to go to something a bit special, I feel. Spoiler alert. But James, it was your pick, wasn't it?
It was, yes. Should we do a log line and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty?
Oh, yes,
I
please.
think that sounds delicious.
In tonight's film, fame-obsessed, mustachioed sociopath and all-round snappy dresser, Rupert Pupkin will do anything to appear on the Jerry Langford show. That is, other than work hard for the opportunity. The film is, of course, Martin Scorsese's prophetic comedy of manners, The King of Comedy.
So will you please give your warmest greetings to the newest King of Comedy, Rupert Pupkin.
His name is Rupert Pupkin. He lives in a world of make-believe.
Oh, Jerry, I love this guy. Always coming up with these great lines. I love him.
Nobody can remember his name.
Mr. Pipkin. Mr. Pupnik.
Mr. Puffer.
Rupert.
Pupkin, Pupkin.
But by 11:30 tonight, the whole world will know that Rupert Pupkin is the new King of Comedy. Robert De Niro, Jerry Lewis, in a Martin Scorsese picture, The King of Comedy.
Ooh, King of Comedy. James, please tell us, why bring this to our shores?
Well, I must be honest, boys, it wasn't actually my first pick. It wasn't even in my top 3 picks to do for this episode. So I was, we take it in turns to pick movies, and I'm like scouring around for things that it can do. So anyway, the first film I wanted to do was a film called Red Rock West, which is a Nicolas Cage, Dennis Hopper neo-noir from the 90s. Not available to rent anywhere at all on any of the platforms, and you can only get it on Blu-ray, which I own, which is a special edition £15 Blu-ray, so it's not really viable. Then I was like, oh, you know what? Catherine Bigelow, one of my favourite directors. Let's do Near Dark, her solo directorial debut. Let's do that. Nope, same thing again.
Oh, really? What?
Yeah, it was on Shudder very briefly, and now it's disappeared off everywhere again.
Lance Henriksen again.
Yeah. Good old Lance. And then I thought, all right, okay, well, I've got a backup for Catherine. I'll do Strange Days, because that'll be easy to get hold of, seeing as it's produced and co-written by one big Jim Cameron. No, that's nowhere either. So then I was like feeling a bit dejected, and how like if you don't own physical media, you just can't bloody see anything that's even slightly obscure these days. And then I saw the trailer for Killers of the Flower Moon, and I thought, you know what? Let's get Marty back on the pod and let's do King of Comedy.
Yes.
So, coming on to King of Comedy itself. So, firstly, the reason I wanted to do this is it's one of De Niro and Scorsese's finest collaborations that, along with New York, feels the most unheralded across their numerous films together. And I actually believe it's sort of in the top 5 for both of them. Across their respective careers. And secondly, it's thematically very similar to Taxi Driver, but it's sort of put together in an entirely different register to that film that may or may not make it even more unsettling than Taxi Driver. So I thought that would be a good jumping off point for discussion as well. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one to get into, and very different sort of Scorsese film. In terms of it's not a religious epic, it's sort of crime, but not really. It's not crime adjacent. It's not a big sweeping epic. It's sort of like an under 2 hour character study.
James, when did you first see King of Comedy?
I'm quite a late convert to this film. So according to Letterboxd, I saw it for the very first time in 2018. It was one of those that was always sort of talked about as being like low-key one of his better films, but was never as celebrated as like your Goodfellas and Taxi Drivers, Raging Bulls of the world. And I just had never got around to it, and it must have been either streaming or on TV or something, and I caught it and just was completely knocked out by it. As someone who sort of like enjoys the British version of The Office and the American version of The Office to a certain degree, and Alan Partridge and that sort of cringe humour, it was really right up my street, and it had a real sort of nasty hostility to it that I really, really got on board with quite early and thought, oh yeah, this is a very special film.
Brilliant. I've got so many questions. But Si, when did you first? What is your relationship with King of Comedy?
I saw this a while ago actually. As I've sort of alluded to a few times earlier in the episode even, I've kind of inexplicably been a bit slack when it comes to Scorsese pictures over the years. Like there's so many blind spots in terms of his output that I haven't seen. But King of Comedy was one I'd actually seen ages ago with my brother, I think it was. He bought it on DVD sometime in the noughties when we were both in that phase of like expanding our physical media collection.
I thought you were going to say expanding our physical form. I was like, what? That's what I'm doing right now, by the way.
I don't just remember really loving it at the time because I had it was one of those where, not being a massive Scorsese fan at the time, you still know of his big movies like your Goodfellas and I think Cape Fear. We had Cape Fear on VHS, and you kind of know his big Taxi Driver. You know his big movies, but this I'd never heard of, and you're like, how have I never heard this? Robert De Niro's on the front cover. It's done by Martin Scorsese. I've never seen it, but I remember really enjoying it at the time. And this is, I hadn't seen it since, so it's been a long time since I watched it again. So yeah, it was a good pick.
Yeah, I was very interested by this because obviously we enjoy our Scorsese on these. Oh, Scorsy. We enjoy our Scorsese on these shows, and this was one I hadn't seen, and I just knew of the. There were a couple of things that registered with me. One, the title King of Comedy. I just did not know how this fit into Scorsese's filmography. No idea. Then the poster, the image, the main image of Rupert Pupkin with his arms out accepting applause.
Yeah. How
that fits in with anything De Niro or Scorsese, I've got no idea. And then the third thing was PG. How did De Niro and Scorsese come together to make a PG? I've got no idea. So it was always of interest to me, always. But it's one of those films that gets, it's always, I'll get round to it one day. And then, so when you picked it, James, I was thrilled, absolutely thrilled, because it would force the issue with me. But we really need to talk about qualification, don't we? And I believe this week we're going to go critical reception first. Is that right, Si?
Yeah, so King of Comedy might be one of the highest rated films we've covered. Certainly from the perspective of Rotten Tomatoes, where it's currently on 90% for both critical and audience. I do get the feeling it's kind of including a lot of retrospective reviews that's happened that have emerged in
Yes.
recent years rather than reviews from the time. It's quite an old film, but when was it? 82 or something?
82, yeah.
82. Obviously, on these aggregate sites, they don't really pull in everything, but apparently it still did quite well at the time. Ebs rated it 3 out of 4. Time Out called it the creepiest movie of the year in every sense and one of the best. It wasn't all glowing, though. Pauline Kael of The New Yorker was not a fan, saying Scorsese designs his own form of alienation in this mistimed, empty movie, which seems to teeter between jokiness and hate, before going on to then take aim at De Niro, saying, De Niro in disguise denies his characters a soul. His bravura acting in Mean Streets, Taxi Driver and New York, New York collapsed into anti-acting after he started turning himself into a repugnant flesh effigies of soulless characters. Pupkin is a nothing. So yeah, she really went in on a full boot to the rib cage on the phone. So yeah, she did not.
That's an assassination job, surely.
Oh gosh, yeah, she is not. I mean, a New Yorker. But yeah, as mentioned, sort of since its release, it has gathered high acclaim over time, with Joyce Millman of Salon proclaiming it's Martin Scorsese's second least popular movie after The Last Temptation of Christ, which is a shame because it's Scorsese's second greatest film after Taxi Driver, which is very high praise indeed. I think that came in the mid-90s, I think that was. So obviously there'd been a heap of films since that was said, but even so, very, very high praise. I've just realised I haven't done the Letterboxd one, so I don't know what it is on Letterboxd.
We can do a live check.
Oh yeah, it's probably the highest on Letterboxd as well. It's got 4.2 on there.
Whoa, that's unheard
So
of. I don't think we've had a 4 plus 4
Yeah,
on
we
Letterboxd.
very rarely pass the 4 on Letterboxd. So yeah, that's a huge one. So yeah, I certainly think it's one of those films that has gained a better reputation since, and the intervening years since it came out. But it does not qualify on that respect. It's a well-received movie.
So I'm assuming, and just for reference to for those like myself who hadn't seen it prior to this week, you can get it on Disney Plus, by the way. It's right there.
Yeah.
And the one that always makes Rob laugh, Pluto TV. Which is just an ad-supported streamer, basically, that anyone can use.
Fictional.
And they have some right random films on there, like proper classics. Just you've got to know that they're on there, though. Like I watched The Player, the Robert Altman film, on there earlier this year. So it's got that and The King of Comedy.
Nice. Has it got Big Legend? You
I'm not sure. I haven't checked.
So.
I'll have to check. Maybe Prime went for the exclusive on Big Legend.
I have to be honest, Prime was on... Big Legend was on Prime. So, yeah, there you go. They obviously snaffled the exclusive. Greatness knows greatness. Imagine
Bezos is super into Bigfoot. After space exploration, that's his next venture.
Oh, dude, Jeff, if you're listening, please take me along for the ride. Honestly, I'll carry your bags. That was a bit demeaning, really. So if it doesn't qualify critically, which very much it clearly does not, James, budget and box office?
Yeah, so following on from Raging Bull and New York, New York, The King of Comedy was Marty's third box office bomb in a row and his biggest commercial failure in his career, clawing back just $2.5 million against a production budget of 19.
Wow.
Bombing even harder than Rupert Pupkin's stand-up routine.
Which I think we need to talk about whether it bombed or not.
Well, this is the thing. We get into unreliability, don't we? This is a big focus of this film.
Big question marks, yeah.
Yeah.
Blimey.
So, one of my favourite things about Scorsese is, until he, started working with DiCaprio on a regular basis, he was very hit and miss at the box office. Things would make money, so then other things wouldn't, but he'd always get critical acclaim, which is why they kept on allowing him to make movies. But he always has this really funny quote that after he did Colour of Money with Tom Cruise and Paul Newman, which was very much a director-for-hire job, and he sort of made it because he needed to make a hit, I think. And if you haven't seen Colour of Money, do yourself a favour and just watch that. It's just tremendous fun. And he went, I didn't know you could make money making pictures. Like that little funny little uncle that he is. So yeah, he was. Yes, this is even though I read something as well that I was coming into this, is that he was getting a bit fed up after Raging Bull. He didn't feel like he was satisfied, and he was thinking of giving up making narrative films and moving into making documentaries full time. And he did want to make Last Temptation of Christ, and he wanted De Niro to play Jesus, which I would have paid incredible money to see. Imagine Jesus going up against Brooklyn Judas in Harvey Keitel.
Harvey Keitel, yeah.
Yeah, it just would have been incredible.
Who is it? Defoe? Willem Dafoe, isn't it?
Yeah.
De Niro didn't want to do it, and he wanted to make a comedy instead. And then and he brought Scorsese onto this project, which was apparently going to be directed by Michael Cimino of The Deer Hunter to begin with. But because of overruns on Heaven's Gate, that didn't happen, and Scorsese was given the job.
Wow. So I've checked, $19 million in 1982 is worth $60 million today. So it is a big budget for this kind of movie.
Yeah. I mean, De Niro's a huge star at the time. He's a 2-time Oscar winner at this point. This is their first collaboration since Raging Bull. And so it's quite a good pivot as well for De Niro, who's obviously made a name for himself playing, tough guys and lunatics at this point. And he's a lunatic, but he's a very different kind of lunatic in this instance.
Yeah, I mean, let's use that as a jump-off point for the movie itself, if that's all right with you guys. Let's get into the movie, because there's obviously all sorts we need to discuss here. All the main Scorsese players are there. Thelma Schoonmaker is editing, and she's also, I think, a production advisor on this one as well.
Yeah, production manager. I'm not
production
sure.
manager, something like, And then you've got De Niro, and this, I just, obviously going into this very, very cold, I had no idea what this film was about.
Yeah.
And then we're introduced to Pupkin.
Yes. Which is a great character name as well. It just, the way in which it gets mangled by various different people throughout this film is, I suppose that's a question at the top. Did you particularly Rob, because you've not seen it before, did you find the film funny? Did you think it was a comedy, or was it too uncomfortable?
Honestly, so I liked the American Office because it was less cringe than the British one.
Yeah.
The British one nearly killed me the first time I came, with just how cringe it was. And I don't do well. So I've never watched Phoenix Nights. I can't do cringe at all.
Yeah.
So this was, honestly, the start of this was as excruciating as I could imagine. Because obviously, there's a flavour to this film that you need to acquire. And I was going in cold. I was unprepared, totally unprepared. And it took me maybe 20 minutes. And then once 20 minutes had gone, it was like, this is just flipping incredible, this. I'm so invested in absolutely everything. And it's about an absolute delusional lunatic. You know what I mean? And that is the absolute strength. I mean, absolute spoiler alert. Forget the Batman. This is my film of the year. So it was absolutely enthralling. I think, and the script, the way it delivers its reveals, not just reveals like grand narrative reveals, but small reveals, like you've heard his name getting slightly butchered, and then he says it when he goes up to the office. I know we're diving about, and we'll go back to it, but we're just talking about, I'm just giving an overall flavour. Like when he goes up to the office and he says it's Pupkin, Pupkin. It's often misspelled or mispronounced. Just the small, the intelligence of the writing was out of this world.
And I think that particular line that you quote there gets to sort of the heart of this, is that he's very polite, but he's very hostile at all times. He's got this real passive aggressiveness to him that he believes that if he's... Yeah, and that's what that is as well.
Yeah. It's just someone totally unchecked and unguided following their delusion to the point that they feel like it's owed to them, and having like no off switch really, or like an off switch that's just a bit further along than most people. I think that's probably the best way to put it. But no, you're just in there. I mean, so we're at the show, aren't we?
Yeah.
And he's one of the people trying to get to the front to meet Jerry Lewis.
Yes. Or Jerry Langford, as his
Jerry
name
Langford, sorry. It's
film.
Jerry Lewis.
Played by Jerry Lewis.
Played by Jerry Lewis, yeah. So I know nothing about Jerry Lewis, apart from the name. He is a prominent American celebrity of the time, I believe.
Yeah, he was...
he was huge. Before our time, I think that's probably why we're not sort of as familiar with him. But he was massive. He was really big. And I think that's why it works so well with him being in this, because he's sort of at that age as well, where he's sort of at the back end of his career. He's had the fame and all that, and he's already an established comedian, and I think that's why his casting works so well. And obviously, it went down really well as well because he was praised as much as De Niro.
He is brilliant, isn't he? He's absolutely brilliant in this.
Yeah, very, very good at it. He's just like cuts a frustrated man the whole time. Like, fucking so sick of all these people like calling me in the street, and then you've got these like lunatics waiting for me outside the show, and I'm just like, for God's sake, he's just sick of it all.
It's superb. So I've heard that Scorsese rates this as the best De Niro's ever been for him.
Yes.
And I don't doubt that, having watched this. I don't, I think De Niro is brilliant in all of Scorsese's films that I've seen, but this is so different and so painful that I can't help but see it higher than a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's such a departure for him in terms of like, you look at the milestones in his career to this point. It's Vito Corleone, it's Travis Bickle, Jake LaMotta. These are like, he's done The Deer Hunter as well. He's playing like, Travis Bickle is similar to Pupkin in a lot of ways, but they're much more men of violence and aggression, whereas this guy is a full-on nerd. And what I love about the way in which Pupkin is introduced here is like he's in the throng with all these maniac autograph collectors out by the stage door, but he's got this like superiority complex to all the other guys. Like he sees himself as above all these other people that are out there in the throng waiting to get. And he's like, he just says this one line. He's like, "It's not my life. It's not my life," because this other guy's bragging about this autograph that he got. And then in a later scene, we do find out that he's got hundreds and hundreds of autographs himself. Yeah. So it is his life. He's just decided that
he's got cardboard cutouts in his living room.
Oh, he's a lunatic. It's absolutely mesmerising to watch. And it's in this point, don't we, that Jerry comes out from doing the late night talk show. He gets mobbed. He manages to fight his way through the crowd and gets into his limo. And he's set upon by a woman called, who we don't know who this character is at this point. It's spelled Masha, which sounds like Masha to me, but... I'm calling her Marsha, and she gets into the limo with him, and she's like trying to give him a letter. She's infatuated with him. So De Niro, so Pupkin drags him out of the limo, fights them off, manages to get Marsha out of the way, and then gets in the limo with him, and they drive off. And then we're off to the races, really. Well, that's after just a brilliant title sequence when you have the hands of the woman trapped on the inside of the limousine in the freeze frame, which is just Marty to a T. Like he does that freeze frame and just puts the credits over it. What I love about the film is this vibrancy it has whenever it's on the streets in New York. There's something really raw about it, and it doesn't feel like it's been, overly choreographed or anything like that. It feels like he's just got a load of extras and then got the camera up off its sticks and just thrown it into the mayhem, and you get the real energy and it adds to the hostility that's running through the film as well.
Because you get a sense like a lot of it feels like the people milling in the background are just real people just walking past this, and they're kind of like, because you see it in some of the faces, like is this a film or is this
that Robert De Niro?
Is that Robert De Niro? Yeah, and they're just like they're really trying to figure that out. And you know, I read on the trivia thing that Jerry Lewis, it was his idea to call the character Jerry because he was like, well, because I could just be myself.
Yeah.
And people would shout at me on the street as if I was Jerry Lewis, and that's apparently what happened. Like builders and stuff would go, "Hey, Jerry," and he's just like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" Like, but then they'd film all that and put it in the film, and it worked because that was his character. How he was just fed up of this like fame. But yeah, it's great. I love the when it's showing the TV stuff and it's all shot on tape, and then sort of it kind of looks like it's you're filming a TV screen, doesn't it? I mean, I know that's not what he did, but
yeah.
That's what it looks like. It's got that like old-fashioned studio TV look.
Yeah.
And it just looks great. I love that. I just love that look of it really separates between, you know, as you say, the like gritty New York stuff and then the TV studio things. And it puts it in a real time as well. Like you get a real sense of when it is and where it is as well, just in these opening sort of 5-10 minutes. It's so odd.
It is a really odd film.
It's so off kilter, you can't settle.
It's really creepy and really like disturbing in a lot of ways, but then it's also really funny. And I'm like, should I be laughing at this? I don't know if I should be laughing at it. And it's like, you know, it definitely is. In terms of Pupkin himself, it's very in that bracket of cringe humour. Like he doesn't realise how embarrassing he is and how embarrassing he's being.
Yeah.
But there are also some really good comedy beats in it as well, which obviously people weren't sort of used to De Niro doing that at the time. But then you get like Midnight Run coming out a few years later and how funny he is in that and then, you know, Meet the Parents and Meet the Fuckers. And you're like, well, De Niro can do comedy. He's really, you know, he's the full range of what he can do.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the sort of, I guess this is the first sort of part of that where people go, oh, hang on, De Niro can... He's a funny guy. He's a funny guy. Yeah, I really love it. I always found the people who like hunt for autographs really weird as well because I used to film...
Yeah.
I used to film red carpet interviews and it was always the same people, like every time, just waiting for celebrities, and they would scream at them as if they were their biggest fan, but they were doing that same shtick to every single person who would come on the red carpet. And it was so bizarre. It was just this really odd thing they had where it was like, oh, I feel the need. I'm going to stand on this red carpet for hours just to get a passing glimpse of this celebrity who may or may not sign me an autograph, which I've never understood the autograph thing either. I'm like, well, what use is that? I don't understand a book of squiggles. So you met that person. All right, well done.
Yeah, I think it's a big salon market. Matt Damon's been on the Oppenheimer media rounds before he went on strike, and I don't know. They got to talking about autograph hunters, and he was talking to some of them about how, you know, big signatures that they'd got and how much money they went for. And like he'd come out with the airport, and they'd have these autograph hunters there, and they'd have a stack of like Matt Damon headshots, and he'd like start going through and he'd like get to know them because he was interested in this world. And he was like, well, how much does mine go for? He goes, oh, like $10. So apparently him and Ben Affleck had a bet to see who could sign the most autographs to sort of saturate the market and drive the price down on their own autographs. But yeah, there's in the research for this film, apparently De Niro was like so obsessed with like getting into character back in the day, doing crazy stuff. So he was like, he got obsessed with autograph hunters and he went and talked to them and stuff like that. And he knew about a stalker, one of his long-term stalkers. He went over and talked to him and basically got to know him and understand where he was coming from. And he's like, well, what do you want from me? He's like, oh, you know, just to go out for a drink and have dinner.
This is insane.
And this is just insane level of research.
Oh, my word.
And you can see that in the Pupkin character as well. But I think with Pupkin, it's more sinister because he doesn't want to be friends with Jerry. He wants to replace Jerry.
Oh, do you think so?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because all of his fantasies are about him being the superstar on the show, or Jerry begging him to take over the show, or Jerry being so in awe of his comedy writing ability. I mean, the setup of the film is that he ends up in the limo with him, and he's like, I'm a stand-up comedian, and I think I should be on your show. I've been honing my act for so long. And he's like, well, he gives him like good advice, just go out and perform at some clubs and blah, blah, blah. And this is where the comedy of manners comes in. It's just, he won't have that at all. So in order to get rid of him, he goes, you know what, just ring my office and ask for this person. And then they'll set you up and we'll take it from there. It's just like he just needs to get out of the car from this insufferable doofus. It won't leave him alone, basically.
I can't deal with even talking about this.
Yeah. I mean, characters like this are just fascinating to me because I get embarrassed so easily and I feel like second-hand embarrassment for other people so easily. So when I see someone on screen who is just like, doesn't have that filter at all and or doesn't care about how much of a fool of themselves they're making, yeah, it's just absolutely captivating to me. And in that same way that like you're like, chewing on your fingers or hiding behind a cushion.
Oh.
Yeah, and that sort of sets up the plot from there in out. As far as Pupkin's concerned, him and Jerry are now friends, and he's going to be on the show.
As emphasised by so we cut kind of hard from their first meeting to them in a restaurant together, like
I love
getting along famously, and Jerry's begging him to take over the show for 6 weeks, and he's refusing, and he's like, what do you want? The tears from my eyes, all this kind of stuff, and it's just, and he's got people coming up asking for autographs and all this, and it's
ignoring Jerry,
ignoring Jerry, yeah, and it's all in his head. Like we cut. Incredible. This at the time was so ahead of its time. This style of unreliable narrator storytelling.
Yeah, and it's because he's having that conversation with him, but then it's cutting his responses in with what he's actually doing, where he's at home in a different outfit as well. And it's kind of like, hang on, he's in a different. What's going on? And then you're like, oh, he's obviously just daydreaming and just imagine the whole thing. And then you've got that classic thing of where you hear like an off-screen mum like shouting in the background. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Rupert?
Can you keep it down, Rupert? It's so good.
So good.
So we never see his mum, who is obviously played by Martin Scorsese's mother. But then later, when he does his act, just to sort of jump ahead, he references the fact that his mother has died. So is it sort of like a psycho type situation
where he was thinking?
Yeah.
He's imagining that as well, or is that part of his? Oh,
but this is the thing, you don't know because he's delusional, so you don't know what is real and what
right.
isn't.
I didn't think that if push came to shove, he'd be able to kill anyone.
No.
That was just my own personal take, but I don't think there's any definitive answer on this.
No.
So to get rid of him, obviously, we know that Lewis has said, get in touch with my secretary, and they'll arrange a meeting, and obviously this cannons Pupkin along into thinking they have a friendship. It's like 0 to 60 in 0 time at all.
It's ridiculous because the first thing he does is he goes to this dive bar, doesn't he, where he bumps into Rita, who was like obviously a very popular girl from his high school who sort of kind of remembers him, but not really.
Yeah.
And he takes her out on a date immediately, and then he basically just outlines her next 10 years, essentially. And he's right on Front Street. I mean, what I would like to put forward, is this a worse date than the one that Travis Bickle goes on with Sybil Shepherd?
I was just going to say that.
Taxi driver.
It's a similar sort of like outcome and behaviour, isn't it? From the
Yes.
It's such a good parallel because I watched Taxi Driver like a week ago during my Robert De Niro marathon. They're such good companion pieces, the two of these films, because it's like Travis Bickle just hates New York and he's disgusted by it, and that's what sort of drives him a bit mad. But then here you've got Pupkin, who's just so optimistic and enamoured by like the glamour of New York.
Yeah.
He's just like a polar opposite, but then they're equally on this like one-way road to just doing something really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Very self-destructive, and this date is like a key point in both of those films, in this film and Taxi Driver, where they're having this really awkward.
Oh, it's awful.
Date.
It's so painful. I think Diane Abbott is brilliant in this.
Yeah, she's really good.
Really, really good. It's De Niro's wife at the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
That's true.
Yeah, they were married at
They
the
were
time
married at the time
of filming.
So Could you imagine the absolute madness of taking your wife to work and then being this awkward with her?
Well, poor her. She's probably been living with him for the best part of 2 months as he gets
true,
into character. Because
yeah.
he was very method back in the day.
Oh, do I have to go and meet Pupkin on camera? Oh, that's a change. Great.
Well, maybe that's why she's so sort of at ease with him and not as, like, put off as she might be if she hadn't already seen all the work that had gone into the
Possibly.
Very true,
already.
yeah.
Possibly.
Because she's sort of just like, yeah, whatever, these are all pipe dreams, but she's not completely creeped out by him, even though he's...
No, but there's a hope element, isn't there? That he might be, for all the grandstanding and all the nonsense, that he might be the golden ticket for her out of her predicament or her current situation or whatever,
Yeah.
Because she was talking about, her character is laden with regret. She talks about herself, like, oh yeah, the near beauty queen who works in a dive bar, that kind of thing. She gives herself a really hard time.
Yeah.
And I think she's a really interesting character and very pivotal as it comes out as well. Very, very pivotal. But also part of all the ghastly cringe and pain that it's become. And it's all about a tape from here, isn't it? Like the tape of, right, Pupkin wants to get a tape sorted for...
Well, first he goes in and he's got nothing at all. I'd like to see Jerry.
Yeah.
And then that poor receptionist, she's just like, well, do you have an appointment? It's like, oh, no. Me and Jerry discussed this. He just wants to go. He doesn't want to put in any of the work at all to become a successful comedian. As far as we know, he's never done a gig ever in his life. He never says anything especially funny. He's not especially witty in any way at all. He just is convinced that he is the king of comedy and that he belongs on this show already. So he goes there with no tape, no material whatsoever. And then they manage to sort of get him out of there because I love this actress who plays Kathy Long. I've not got her name to hand.
Yeah.
But I think she's really good at dealing with him, essentially.
She is excellent.
Way more polite than she needs to be. And then, she convinces him that he needs to do a tape. And then, is it when he goes out of the building that we realise that he knows Marsha, who was in the limo?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And then it's like, as soon as they start interacting, you're like, oh God, there's two of them.
Right, let's talk about Marsha for a moment. She's...
What a performance that is.
She's
incredible performance.
This is one of the great... I think it's one of the great character performances I've ever seen. I think.
Sandra Bernhard is the actress. And they're just arguing in the streets, going absolutely insane, trying to one-up each other. Like, did you give Jerry the letter? Like, she's completely infatuated with Jerry Langford. She wants to have a romantic relationship with him. And Pupkin is like, no, I can't be seen with you. You're a nut job. They're just both screaming at each other. You're delusional.
People in the street looking at them like, oh.
Yeah.
Is this where he pulls his sandwich out? He's got a briefcase, hasn't he? Walking around and he just pulls his sandwich out of his briefcase. Is that all that was in
that
there?
might be after he's recorded the tape. And because she chases Jerry through the street at one point, which is so funny. He knows who she is. He sees her coming and he starts running and he's got a really funny run.
It is funny.
And she chases him into the building, and they've been telling him all day. He's been waiting in the waiting room for Jerry to listen to his tape. Him recording the tape is one of the funniest things ever. When he's trying to give the whole context, and it's just the preamble. And what I love about this is you don't hear any jokes at all from him.
No.
At this stage.
No.
So we don't even know if he's good. We think he's probably rubbish, but we don't know for sure.
That does add so much to the... I don't know, the narrative intrigue for sure.
Yeah.
You want to know. I actually want to know at this point. Is he all right? Is he any good at this? Is there anything behind this? Whereas Marsha, bless her, this is full on maniac stalker territory.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. She's your garden variety obsessed stalker.
Yes. But what a performance. What a performance.
Really funny as well.
And that's
really funny how she goes
together.
back and forth with him. They're just screaming at each other. Absolute pair of delusional weirdos.
I'd love to think in an alternate universe, that they looked at each other at one point and said, hang on, we'd be pretty good for each other, and just went off together.
Imagine their children.
Imagine their wedding. Imagine their lives.
But he's got like this real superiority complex over her.
He does,
well.
doesn't
He thinks he's so much better than her. It's like, you're just as bad.
Yeah. It's frightening, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he makes this tape and hands it in, and she's is it Long?
Kathy Long, yes.
Kathy Long.
It's
says,
like she's like, is she a secretary or like an associate producer or something?
Yeah,
like
something
that,
like that. Yeah, and says, we'll make sure we have an answer for you. And she gives him a lot of time. Like too much time, like you say, James. Like too good to him, really. But watching him in the office is amongst my favourite scenes of the film. Just the excruciating manner in which he sits and looks around the room and nods at people, and all this. Oh, it's such a brilliant.
Yeah, when the receptionist has to tell him to get out as well, it's like, this is a reception area, not a waiting room.
The timing of when she says like, we'll get back to you. We'll take a listen and get back to you. And then he waits for her to walk off and then goes, but when will that be?
Yeah,
he's just like,
yeah.
And then she's like, oh, for God's sake, just go.
She's like, what is the best answer here that will get him out of the building?
And then he's like, it's all right, I'll just wait. And it's like, it's got to be like days, mate. Don't just wait. But the timing is so good. It's really funny.
This is like really funny. People who are like sociopathic in this way, they just have no concept that the world exists outside of themselves and their needs and their wants and their own selfishness. And he's just like, well, why won't he just listen to this right away? Like, not that he's... How could he possibly have anything else to do other than listen to my tape after we had that conversation in his limo last night?
Honestly, guys, I'm telling this. Just talking about this is stressing me out so much. I can't. There's such a tension headache.
It's just a level of unreasonableness, which is
isn't it? But like when they take the tape. He's convinced it's going to be good, obviously. And then he goes round and she says, no, we think you should go. And again, she's dead reasonable. We think you should go to the clubs and work on your material in the clubs, get some live audience reaction, and then we'll take it from there. And he's like, she walks off. And he this is the first time you see anything sinister, really sinister, isn't it? Like, well, no, you're wrong. And he follows her and said, no, with respect, you're wrong, that kind of thing.
But there is no respect at all. It's like, and do you speak for Jerry? Yes, and he trusts our opinion. He's like, well, he's like, no, I disagree.
Oh, it's too much. And this obviously sets him on a course.
Yes, he gets thrown out the building, then Marsha winds him up outside, so he storms back in again. He just goes running through the through the back office. Jerry, and then when
it's so
they do the gag, it's so good. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's really, really funny.
It's way funnier than I remember, because I remember thinking like, oh, it's like sort of dark humor. I mean, it is still dark humor, but it's one of those where it's not like laugh out loud humor. But then I was watching it yesterday and I was laughing a lot at it. I thought it's a really sharp and funny film, and it's all down to the performances, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, because they improv a lot as well on there, because I believe this script was actually written in the 70s, and it does feel like a 70s movie, and the style
really
of comedy is
sort
of very 70s as well. But they obviously improved a lot to make it more contemporary in the dialogue exchanges, and that works really well. So having that failed gambit of trying to storm the office to find Jerry, he drags Rita into things and decides he's just going to go and spend the weekend at Jerry's summer house.
Oh my god! So Lord. I was watching this bit going like, because you kind of a lot of the film you're trying to figure out what's real and what's
because he has so many different fantasies. You can always tell it's fantasies because it's really clunky and it's not very as slickly put together as the rest of the film, purposely so, because it's him imagining all these things and he's just a witless buffoon, essentially.
Yeah, and so this starts and I'm like, oh, it's another one of his fantasies where he's going to go for a nice lunch at Jerry's house, and then you quickly realise it. No, this is actually happening. He's actually going to visit, and he's dragging poor Rita down with him.
Because she thinks in good faith she's going there on invitation.
Yeah.
Who is this butler? Because he is
outstanding.
so funny.
He's so good, isn't he?
Mr. Langford, I'm sorry to disturb you, sir. What's wrong? Everything's wrong. There are a couple over here. His name is Pumpkin. Pumpkin, yes. Do you know the name Pumpkin?
But yeah, hang on a minute. This is where I turn fully against Jerry. Having these lovely people in his home and treating him this way. Don't like that. Do not like that. So,
I honestly think Jerry Lewis is so funny in this film because he's like a reluctant participant in the movie. He just doesn't want to be there at all. I
think that's what makes the performance work so well.
Yeah,
in the context of it,
because
he just looks so put upon all the time. Crying out loud.
Just interrupted his round of golf in his little tiny shorts.
Oh, and he turns up with his iron.
And then he's like, "Oh, Jerry, did you have a good golf game?" And then he's just trying to style it out. I mean, what did he think was going to happen?
He's got Rita playing his record.
Or is he so delusional at this stage that he's convinced himself that he was really invited?
It's monstrous. The whole thing is monstrous.
Delusion is a word that is said a lot during this, and it's a key theme of the movie.
It's the key describer for Pupkin because he's just not living in the same world as everybody else.
But watching him go through these delusions, watching him so steadfast in his course of wanting to be famous, and like you say, wanted to take over from Jerry Lewis, Jerry
Langford, yeah,
Langford. Thank you. It's just so fun to watch. It's just an electric watch, this film.
Yeah.
And it obviously doesn't go so well. And this
is where the real world sort of comes in on his fantasies now, isn't it? And Jerry completely rejects him. He's absolutely fuming. Apparently, as well. I mean, I got this off IMDb, so I don't know if it's true or not. But basically, they were trying to sustain Jerry Lewis's anger to keep him in character. So apparently, off camera, De Niro was hurling anti-Semitic abuse at him. And he was getting really, really annoyed. And then he'd go straight into the scene.
What?
Afterwards. But that's off the IMDb. I don't know how true any of that is.
What?
But yeah, it was, De Niro was a full-on method actor back in the day.
It's just bananas.
Yeah.
Even thinking about that is just bananas.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past Method De Niro, though, to be doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
But,
apparently, Lewis, who had never worked with method actors, was shocked and appalled, but delivered an extremely credible performance. He was absolutely furious.
Appalled is such a good word.
I just, again, on the trivia thing, where just, Jerry Lewis just dismissing of all the praise, just I wasn't that good at it. I was just really just being myself. And it's, really, really good, mate.
It does, because he's really, sort of the straight man. Everybody else around him is the crazy person. He's he's just put upon, and everybody else is just a whirling dervish around him.
He needs to be good for this to work. He needs to get this right for it to work, and he does get it right, and it does work. And they go back home, and
is this where he has the fantasy about the wedding on the Jerry Langford show, which is just all of his fantasies are just so lame as well.
It's so good.
Petty.
It is. The pettiness is what, when he's in this fantasy, he's introduced on stage to his old head teacher
who didn't rate him.
They make him apologise. They make him apologise. Sorry for ever being mean to you. Yeah.
We were wrong.
In the wedding vows, we were wrong. Oh, it's so good. And Rita being, again, daydream Rita being dragged along for this ride is way too painful to watch. When in fact, she's gone home nursing the fact that she went on this wild goose chase to Jerry Langford's house and broke in essentially and got thrown out.
Oh, I'd love to have seen the car ride back between Pupkin and Rita.
Pupkin would have styled it out. He would have. It was just a bad day for him. Just a bad day. Oh dear. So this is when Marsha and
things kick up a gear from here.
Yeah, and they do it on the street. It's the worst kidnapping. Like they drop the gun in the gun.
I mean, the gun is so fake looking as well when you see it in close up, and he's dressed in like a Bahama shirt, and they've both got these cataract sunglasses.
Massive glasses.
It's brilliant. It's
but I think, Rob, you said it earlier, like, I don't think he's capable of killing, and this is the scene where it's like, yeah, they're not really capable of doing something that bad.
Yeah.
Because the way they do this kidnapping is just so ridiculous.
Honestly,
with the plastic gun.
Yeah.
And the big stupid sunglasses.
It's so good. It adds so much to the enjoyment. Again, is it... So I know that there's nothing in it that would constitute it not being a PG, apart from arguably the suggestion of what Marsha does in a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that really goes over that. But tonally, what these people are doing is not PG material.
No, it's not. No. I'm surprised it hasn't been reclassified to at least a 12 because it is... Yeah, there's some very sinister stuff going on with it in the theme. It's like with the... Do you remember the old apocryphal tale about Toby Hooper trying to get a PG for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because there's not actually any violence shown in it? And like, because you don't see any blood or any guts or anything like that, it's just all suggestive. It's all in your mind. Like, no, it was like, well, give me some cuts and I'll cut it and get it down to a PG. It's like, we can't. It's the atmosphere of the film.
Yeah.
You could not take anything out of this that would make us release it as a PG because it is just too oppressive and upsetting. This is very much the same way, but it's got that old PG rating on there.
I didn't know it was a PG. That's
so on Disney, it's rated as 9+. Loads of 9-year-olds flipping
just
love
like
kidnap movies
on a Disney platform as well, which you could easily just stumble across. Oh, I'm going to search for comedy, and King of Comedy comes. Oh, I like to enjoy it. I like to meet the parents. I'll watch that.
Right, is this Marsha's place?
Yes, she's a rich kid.
So where they hole him up, Jerry Lewis,
palace.
is just astonishing. It's just an amazing, amazing place. And they've duct tape him up, having made
the cue cards is really funny.
So good. Unbelievable bargain with the studio. The king is coming.
But it's just like that when they make that phone call and like the studio don't believe it's Jerry.
Multiple times. Yeah, who do they think it is? Marty or something like that?
I think it's some impersonator.
Martinez, is this you again?
And he's just, oh, for God's sake. But the kid, when he's going through the cue cards and he's getting him to read the cue card, then he just botches it completely.
He's got them in the wrong order. He's got like 3 words on every cue card.
Empty cards. He's like, you've got an empty one. That's upside down. It's like, oh,
I can't do it.
And then he reads it out, and then he finishes it, and then on the phone, and he goes like, it's not grammatically correct, but I think you get the gist.
And the gist is that he, on receipt of Jerry Langford going home safely, in reverse, they've got to have given airtime to the king, who is going to show up at the studio. Like, obviously, the king is Pupkin. He's going to show up later and do a tight few minutes.
Yeah.
That's it. And
then
leave.
He agrees to lead the FBI to where he's got Langford held captive.
Yeah, but he wants to make sure that it gets broadcast at 11:30 at night, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's all part of the gig as well.
For reasons that will then become clear later.
Yeah.
So anyway, they go ahead with the gag, and he's like, "I'm sorry, Jerry, I'm going to have to tape you up." And I don't know if it does a straight hard cut to him and Marsha sat across from each other, or if it goes to another scene and then comes back. But the amount of tape that they put on Jerry Langford is just one of the funniest things I have ever seen. Like,
he can't move.
He just looks like a turtle.
You just get the shot of like De Niro just unraveling the tape, like, and then it cuts, and he's just the most ridiculous, like shitty, just excessive taping. Yeah, so that was one of the things I laughed out loud at. And then when it goes back again, and Marsha is trying to seduce him, and all the candles, and it's like you just imagine her like off screen while Pupkin's in the studio. And she's just lighting all these candles trying to seduce him. There's about 300 candles.
Oh, they're all over. They're down the hall. They're in other rooms. It's obscene. And she's pouring wine for them, but he can't drink. His mouth's taped shut, and his arms are underneath that sweater of tape that he can't get out of. And this is where, again, I think also Marsha. What you saying? The actress's name was again, James? Sandra Bernhardt, was it?
Bernhardt, yeah.
Yeah. She is so brilliant.
Yeah, because she's just monologuing, isn't she? It's just a stream of consciousness.
Yeah, and she convinces. So this is sort of, we split between the two locations, and she's trying to seduce Jerry, and the clothes coming off is just horrendous. It's just honestly, I can feel the cringe and the whole uncomfortableness soaring at this point. And at the same time, Pupkin is on set, and he's just brilliant with everyone. Like, he knows he's getting arrested immediately after.
Yeah.
He just wants that 5 minutes on stage. Just give him that, and he's fine.
There's a great beat again with the actress who plays Kathy Long, and where she like, "Oh, Mr. Pupkin, what are you doing here?" And then he goes, "I'm the king," and she goes, "Oh, of course it's you." Like, she didn't register because she just thought he was a weird dude. And then when he reveals it, it's like, yeah, of course it's you. Of course you're the one who's behind this. It's chilling.
Yes.
It's like really
it is chilling,
yeah.
And he styles it out again. He's like, "Yes, so should we go backstage?" You know, like that kind of thing. Like,
I need to get into makeup.
Oh, that's when he's talking to the FBI. The FBI scenes are absolutely astonishingly good.
Who's the guy who they try and arrest by thinking he's the...
So obviously, because the way I interpreted that is that
really
they had to keep it under wraps, what was happening. And this poor guy who's an author who's supposed to be on the show has been bumped off the show, basically, but nobody told him. So they think he must be the kidnapper. And that's when Pupkin sneaks onto the set, essentially.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, because he's trying to get his name, and you go, "But your ID's different to what you said." He's, "Oh, it's a pseudonym. I'm an author." It's like, "Why'd you do that?" He's like, "Well, that's my business. I'm an author." It's really good exchange.
I like Tony Randall, who's stepping in for Langford as well. You know,
yes, yeah,
he's very good on the old monologue. But we get a cameo from Marty as well, don't we?
Yeah. We do, yeah.
Lovely, gorgeous cameo.
Yeah, gorgeous, thin, young Martin Scorsese.
He's very good in it as well.
He quite likes Pupkin's writing on the opening monologue.
Yeah.
Tony Randall.
Yeah, I think the monologue worked. Again, and then you get like this moment that we're all building up to, really, which is where Pupkin gets his.
But again, we cut away from it before he comes out on the curtain. We cut away because we don't see it until he then. So he does his 5 minutes. He comes off stage. We hear applause, but we never see the audience reaction. Then he goes to the FBI. Right? Yep. Come on. We've got to go to this bar at this time to watch the show, and then I'll take you to Jerry. And lo and behold, he takes them to Rita's bar where she's working, goes up on the bar, changes the channel, and this is when we see his Type 5.
And it's all through the grain and fuzz of the television set, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's a weird character, Pupkin, because as sort of deranged as he is and delusional as he is, I was on his side by the end as well. I was kind of sympathetic towards him because I wanted him to do well, sort of thing. I was like willing him to do well. You're way more sympathetic towards him than say you are with Travis Bickle, who's like completely lost his mind. But here it's totally different. Like I was hoping that he'd do well. I don't think he did well, but I was really hoping it would be a good stand-up and it would. And everyone would go, "Oh, he's actually really good. Oh, happy ending, blah, blah, blah." But obviously we're not going to, that's not how it is.
No, I think it's just an example of just mesmerisingly good storytelling and writing, this, because it makes Pupkin all the more tragic.
Yeah.
Because, so let's say if this is, what did he say? He said, well, I just take things that happened in my life and make them funny. That's how he works on his act kind of thing.
Yeah.
He says that at some point earlier on in a dream. So but that's exactly what he does here in this, what could be another dream. I just don't know. It's just like there's some lines in it where it's so painful to listen to. Like, my father kicked me in the stomach for good luck. Like, wow, what a line. Oh man. And I end up like you say, Si, feeling really sorry, desperately sorry. And it's like one of those, like, there's the joke, like, obviously we all make fun of our own situations to make light of it and to, in a lot of ways, to deal with it or whatever. But in this instance, it also goes such a long way to explaining the character. And explaining the origins of the character as well. So, yeah, I ended up sort of really loving Pupkin in the end. Which is insane. Like, totally insane.
It does. I think that's very good that they resist what will have been discussed and was actually put forth by Jerry Lewis, that Lewis suggested an ending in which Rupert Pupkin kills Jerry, but it was turned down, and that would just be Taxi Driver then, or
it would, yeah.
Or worse, it would be Joker, because that's basically what happens in Joker. Is that he becomes obsessed with a talk show host, and he goes on the talk show and he murders him. Like, so Jerry Lewis would have really... I think he might be dead now, Jerry Lewis. So I don't know if he saw Joker before he passed, but I think he would have enjoyed that because it has the ending that he wanted for the King of Comedy.
No, sadly... 2017. I don't know when Joker came out, but I think it was after that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he gets carted off.
Yeah.
And the FBI is saying, if you wrote that material, or what did he say? Something so harrowing again. But it's just, it's brilliant.
They didn't rate it.
They didn't rate it. But and meanwhile, Jerry Langford has escaped mid seduction attempt by Marcia. He sprints out, pulling bits of tape off his ankles. Down the street, and she runs off down the street chasing him in her underwear, which is so unedifying.
And then he stops at a TV store, doesn't he? And Pupkin's face is filling all the screens in the store window.
Oh yes, there's this amazing epilogue where...
Now this is the question, because again, this is very similar to Taxi Driver. Me and Simon were discussing this the other week, weren't we, about the ending of Taxi Driver, whether it's a dream sequence or if it really happened or not. And this one it's the same. It's almost the same ending. Like, did he went to prison for 6 years for kidnapping Jerry, but it turned him into like an overnight sensation. And then he wrote a memoir when he was in prison, and then had the film rights were being lobbied for, and then he had his own show to come back to when he came out. Now, is that a fantasy, or did that really happen? What's your take on it?
Because I would have said it was a fantasy, but then having spoke to you, James, about the Taxi Driver one, and then how you got, because I watched Taxi Driver and thought, this is surely a delusion of him. Like, he believes what he's done has created this hero and blah blah blah. And then you said to me, he was like, yeah, but is that not what the media would do? And you're like, oh God, yeah, they would. So it's like, is that what people would do? Like, they would find this crazy kidnapper guy fascinating and entertaining and would give him all that he wants, and it would be like, people probably would buy his memoir if he wrote one. So it is exactly the same. Yeah. It's exactly the same ending as Taxi Driver in that sense, where it's like, you can read it both ways.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's a killer ending. I think it's really
amazing,
good.
Yeah. And I definitely think it's real. I definitely think this is what happened.
Yeah, I think it's real.
Because this is, you're right, because I think this is also a little bit of Scorsy having a pop at the media as well. I think,
absolutely.
And a lot of this, so much of this is Scorsy having a pop at the media and making a social comment about this. But, definitely for me, that someone who picture someone kidnapping, I don't know, Graham Norton in this country, right?
Poor Graham.
And then make Graham Norton, like Nicky's, someone turning up on the sofa instead of Graham Norton, and then going to prison
Who were the
for a
guests
couple of
on
years.
that episode? Right.
No.
Rupert Pupkin's filling in for Graham Norton. Who are the guests on the sofa? Because he brings them all out at the same time, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they're all just chatting there.
Yeah.
Who could we have?
Is it topical? Because we could go full Bob Oppenheimer. Margot Robbie, Chris Nolan, Greta Gerwig, and Cillian Murphy. Yeah, we could have all four.
Yeah, and they're all just like, "Who's this guy?"
Who is this? And then but then like afterwards, like, yeah, I'm the guy that literally kidnapped my way onto the primetime television. Of course you're going to read that book. Of course he's going to end up with his own show. Of course, this is exactly how the media works. Of course it is.
See, now, for me, with Taxi Driver, I think that what happens is the reality of what happens because of the people that he murdered and the way that they framed that story of him saving young Jodie Foster, that seems like a righteous act. With the King of Comedy, I think it's all a fantasy. I think I think they throw him in jail and lock away the key, to be honest.
Yeah, 2 years, 8 months seems really lenient.
Yeah, he got 6 years but got out for good behaviour, I think, and he was in a minimum security.
I think he would get out for good behaviour, though, because I think he's harmless, I think.
Of course he would. And the amount of letters he'd get in prison as well.
It's very hard, isn't it? I think what threw me to thinking it was a fantasy this time is the way, at the end of the film, the camera just holds on De Niro and his face, and all you hear is the applause, and then he doesn't ever go into his act at all. Yeah, and we've all said that we thought his act was poo. So
I thought it was good.
I thought it was good.
Yeah. Seemed
Solid
far
stuff.
worse.
Yeah.
Solid stuff. No, I love it. That the thing that we didn't find out, though, which probably makes me think it might be a dream, is the fact that we never cut to Marsha on a psych ward in a straitjacket jabbering to herself.
Being arrested afterwards,
yeah. So we've got to the end of the movie. What are your favourite bits, guys?
The summer house. The summer house is absolutely brilliant.
That's so hard to overlook.
From the minute they arrive, and he just blags his way in there, gives the butler Jono his cases, and just spins him a story. Then Jono gets straight onto the phone to Jerry, and he's like, "I'm having a heart attack here. They're in there. They're touching stuff. I don't know what they're doing."
His delivery is so funny.
It's so good.
And then that bit where he's trying to let Jerry into the house, right? He really couldn't open the door on the set.
Oh, really?
So then when Jerry comes in, he goes, "What the hell are you doing? I've been out there for 8 minutes." That's an improv line.
Oh, that's so good.
So yeah, I just love that scene. It's so good. When you get nearly all of the principals in the same place at the same time, and then just throwing in this butler who's in 2 scenes and absolutely nailing it, hitting threes from all over the place.
So
he's
good.
Just too funny. The way he's like freaking out on the phone is so funny.
So, what's your favourite bit?
I love that scene. Mine's a really innocuous bit towards the start of the film when Rupert's trying to ring Jerry's offices. And he's doing so from a bank of payphones.
Oh, so
and
good,
everyone's kind of like kicking off, like, can I use the phone, blah, blah, blah. And there's like a bit of a kerfuffle. And then it cuts. And then it pans back to the phone. And he's just like on the phone, just like hugging the phone, just like guarding it from anyone. He's trying to use it. And De Niro's just got this amazing pose where he's just proper like hugging the phone. And, just again, one of those laugh out loud funny moments. But then also when Jerry's just like walking down the street and that woman's going, "Can I get an autograph? Can I get an autograph?" And he's like, "No." And she goes, "I hope you get cancer. I hope you get cancer."
It's such a funny line.
So these entitled people, like, he could stop his day and just give you what you want. And she's like, yeah, I hate you. Oh, you get cancer.
You should only get cancer. It's just such a weird line delivery. Apparently that really happened to Jerry Lewis, and Scorsese just set the cameras up and let him direct that entire interaction. That's an actress who's on the phone, I have to say, but that interaction actually happened to him in his real life.
I'm surprised. Love it. It's like the people who like interrupt celebrities in restaurants, and interrupt them anywhere in their everyday life, and then they get pissy when they don't do anything, and they're like, "Oh, this is how you treat your fans." And it's like, they don't owe you anything.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't owe you anything.
No. Oh no.
There's a really good little 20-minute making of on the Blu-ray, and Scorsese's talking about fans and their relationships to celebrities, and that the people who follow these celebrities, they invest so much into them and they imprint characteristics onto them that they don't necessarily have, so that when they meet them in reality and they're just normal people trying to get on with their day, like, they can't compute that because it doesn't fit in with the mental image that they've created for themselves. He's a smart guy, and he'll
go far. He'll go far. What was your favourite bit?
Oh, there's so many that I really, really like, but I think I'm going to go with when we see him in his home after he's got back from, I think, possibly the first meeting with Jerry Langford. I've got to stop doing that. And he's got a cardboard cutout of Liza Minnelli at one side and Jerry Langford on the other. And he sits between them, just like talking to them as if they're both real. And it's just, he's so brilliant. De Niro is so brilliant in that moment. He's brilliant all the way through, but I just think especially like as looking at the character and just the commitment to the performance as well. And it's so funny watching him do this. Hey you, as he jumps up to kiss Jerry on the cheek. I love this guy. Hey you. I mean, it's superb. So in which case, FYR, the king of comedy, James, you'll go last as is per our custom because it was your pick. Si, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I think I even enjoyed it more so the second time round, even after all these years. It's really painful to watch in terms of the cringe factor, but with Scorsese at the helm, it somehow manages to be really sinister, but then also really laugh out loud funny. I don't know how he manages to do it. And it is largely down to the two lead performances. De Niro is just unbelievable as Rupert Pupkin, delivering a real frantically awkward and chaotic performance. That, for me, is up there with his very best. It's like certainly top 5.
For sure, yeah.
Possibly top 3. He's just so good in it. And then with Jerry Lewis, I'm not that familiar with Jerry Lewis. As I say, I think he's a bit before our time, but I've never seen anyone manage to sell the feeling of second-hand embarrassment more than him, and just not wanting to be in the company of the people he's sharing the screen with. I think he's just so good in this film. And then when you put that against the scene where he's the fantasy where he's chatting to Rupert at the bar, begging him to be on his show, and he sells that as well. Like, he really likes Rupert and all that sort of stuff. So he's fantastic in it, despite saying, as I mentioned before, that he was just being himself and he didn't know where his praise come from. He's brilliant in it. It's just a really solid film. It's very funny. It's very dark. It's very obviously well made. Of course, it's well made. And it should be one of those films that is on that list to tick off before you perish.
Excellent word use.
It's one of those films I think you have to see it. I think it's very, very essential watching. And particularly if you're interested in seeing the godfather of cringe comedy, because I think a lot of stuff owes itself to this film, particularly De Niro's performance in it.
Slam dunk agreement. This blew me to bits, blew me away. I just loved it. And it'll go down, from here as, this is one of my top films. So much about it I completely love. But I just think it had to be so ahead of its time in 1982, was it?
Yeah.
Was it 2 or 1? 2. Had to be so ahead of its time in terms of storytelling. And much like what Scorsese, is famed for making you root for people you really shouldn't be rooting for.
Yeah,
exactly. And I just think it's just brilliant. It's complicated. I just think it's fabulous. I loved every minute of it. We haven't really talked about the sheer quality of the filmmaking as well.
Yeah.
Which is, as you will imagine, just so staggeringly high. But this is another brilliant example of script and film craft coming together to create real greatness, alongside some of the best performances you're ever likely to see. I always thought I would laugh out loud all the way through. I had my head in my hands all the way through. I just urge anyone who's not seen it to see it. It's another one of those films where I am simultaneously so glad that we do this podcast so I get to find them at last, but also so embarrassed that I've not, and regretful that I've not seen it before. So yeah, watch this.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I mean, I know that Simon had seen it before, but yeah, for you watching it on a first viewing, Rob, I didn't know how you would get on with it, but yeah, I'm very pleased that you've both enjoyed it. Just a quick one on Scorsese's direction. He's quite restrained here, isn't he? He's not very. He's not only flashy. There's no like huge tracking shots or anything like that, or lots of zooms or dollies or anything like that. He just sort of gets out of the way and lets the actors do their thing, really. And yeah, it really benefits the film and the performances, and sort of brings a real authenticity to the world itself in which it's taking place. I just think it's just brilliantly funny. It's disconcerting. As I said at the top, it's a comedy of manners that's way ahead of its time, featuring an all-time great performance from De Niro. The film has this sense of hostility sort of pulsing through it from the get-go, as it intelligently skewers a selfish, fame-obsessed culture that would only become more prevalent and scary in the following decades. I mean, Rupert Pupkin would have been on Big Brother, wouldn't he, if he was around in the 2000s, or if he got himself into really good shape on Love Island,
Stacked
with that stash. Stacked Pupkin.
Stashed Pupkin.
But yeah, it's just masterful. I just think it's really funny. It's really scary, and it's in a subtle sort of way. And yeah, just great performances across the board, and a real good one.
Nice.
And probably won't be the last time we get Scorsy on the pod. Get ready for the Silence podcast coming.
I know there's quite a few in there that would definitely qualify, particularly from the box office side of things. Yeah. Raging Bull, as if we're allowed to do that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I'd have to double check that for sure. But yeah, he's got quite a few that didn't perform at the box office.
Wow.
So we might be coming back to these. And it's always good to sort of... We've done Bringing Out the Dead and we've done The King of Comedy now, and neither are gangster films. So, that puts that to bed.
Oh, yeah.
It's just super. I'm so glad we've done this movie. I'm so glad we had a chance to properly talk it through.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for bringing it, James.
Oh, here's a quick one. Did Joaquin Phoenix get Robert De Niro's Oscar for basically starring in the same?
I've still not seen Joker, so I don't know. So
I do like that performance by Joaquin Phoenix, by the way. I think he's really good in that movie. But for here, I was very conscious of how close it was to King of Comedy, with just a taxi driver sort of chaser on the end.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of confused why it got so many plaudits, that film, because it was just a mix of those two movies. And it wasn't even trying to be sort of secret about it or like clever with it. It was just obviously a rip-off, just with Joker in there. It was just weird. But yeah, it was a really good performance and a decent film. But enough of that. Watch this instead.
Well, superb. Thanks, boys. Great to have a chat as always. Whose pick is it next? Is it yours, Simon?
It is.
And what do you have coming to our
shores?
Eye sockets? What metaphor will we go for this time?
So from Martin Scorsese's King of Comedy to who I believe is the current King of Comedy, we'll be revving up our motocross bikes and donning our fake moustaches for the Lonely Island's first foray into movie land and Hot Rod.
Hot Rod is good. Hot Rod is really good.
Again, never seen.
I've never seen
Watch
Hot Rod.
Radio. First watch
It's a
radio.
tight 90 minutes. I mean, today, today's film is a very funny film, but we haven't done an all-out comedy for a while.
We really
I don't
haven't,
think
yeah.
so.
No, Hot Rod is less sinister than the King of Comedy.
But yeah, somewhat controversial. I just think Andy Samberg's the man, and we will discuss at length why that is the case.
Oh yeah, that'll be great.
Next we meet.
Excellent. Well, I very much look forward to. I nearly said MacGruber, so it's not MacGruber. Sorry.
We have done MacGruber, haven't we?
And Popstar, yeah. It's in that same sort of wheelhouse.
It is, yeah. It's because this week, I took my wife out for dinner and we listened to the MacGruber soundtrack on the way there. What an old romantic.
One of the favourite film of Chris Nolan. Just
so we know. Yeah,
so we know.
okay. Cheers, fellas. Well, we know this. That sounded sinister. I don't know why. Gents, thanks for everything. We'll see you next time for Hot Rod. And everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in once again. Thank you very much. Please tune in next time and hit us up on the Twitters for a chat.
X. It's called X now. X now, Rob. Send us some X's on X.com.
Oh, yeah. Elon's decided that having one of the most recognisable brands in the world is not a good thing, essentially. So he's replaced the bird with a little X.
Is this a joke?
No.
Yeah, he's rebranding Twitter from Twitter to X.
Well, how would you say?
It's
I don't want
it's not
an
been
X on my
established
phone.
yet.
That looks well
It's not
seedy.
been established. But anyway.
Right.
Topical.
Finding out things in real time here. Amazing. So, X us.
We're just going to keep calling it Twitter until he boots us all off, basically.
Tweet us at FYI Film Pod and give us 5 stars on your subscription service of choice. Thanks so much, everyone. And yeah, take it easy. Have a lovely time. Say goodbye, boys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Anyone for a potato and leek cup of soup?
I'm going to have to stock up and get him in and just do a midnight.
Honestly, you got to try it.
soup.
Is it? Maybe it's. I would say it's since turning 40, but it's not. I've been doing this for a long time.
It's key to have freshly ground black pepper in the cup of soup, though, isn't it?
And triple season, yeah.
And okay.
In the cup before you put the powder in. Then do the powder.
Does he not already have the seasoning in the powder?
Of course
though?
it does.
You're making it really salty.
No, I don't.
Making me thirsty just thinking
Oh,
about it.
pepper.
Just pepper. Oh no, I want to feel like I want the outside of my lips to feel singed. That's what I really want. You're sipping like, oh yeah, really got it that time.